August 30th, 1945. Tokyo Bay, Japan. The war was over. Or at least, that was what everyone believed. American ships stretched across the water beneath a gray morning sky. Sailors stood along the rails in silence. Officers checked documents. Reporters adjusted cameras. Military police watched every movement. Everything had been prepared for one of the most important moments in modern history. Japan was about to surrender. But then something happened that nobody expected. A group of Japanese officers arrived near the signing area aboard a launch approaching the massive battleship USS Missouri. Their uniforms were spotless. Their faces showed no emotion. Their country had been devastated. Cities burned. Millions were dead. Yet something about them unsettled the Americans. They walked forward without lowering their heads, without showing any visible sign of submission, without displaying the defeat many expected to see. Lieutenant Robert Hayes exchanged a glance with Sergeant William Carter. "Is it just me?" Hayes whispered. Carter stared at the approaching officers. "No, sir." The tension began immediately. Nobody said it aloud, but everyone was thinking the same thing. How could men whose empire had just collapsed walk with such composure? The atmosphere changed. The celebration disappeared. In its place came uncertainty. And before the morning was over, word of that tension would reach the highest-ranking American commander in the Pacific, General Douglas MacArthur. The Japanese delegation stepped aboard. American sailors watched quietly. Some had lost brothers. Some had survived brutal island battles. Others carried scars that would never fully heal. For many of them, this was not politics. This was personal. Corporal Frank Donovan had fought on Okinawa. His closest friend had died there. As he watched the Japanese officers walk past, his jaw tightened. They don't even look defeated. A sailor beside him shrugged. Maybe they're trying to save face. Donovan never responded. His eyes stayed fixed on the delegation. Nearby, military photographers captured every moment. The world would see these images. The world would remember this day forever. Yet something strange continued to spread through the American ranks. Discomfort. Not anger. Not hatred. Something more complicated. The Japanese officers moved carefully. Their expressions remained calm. Their posture remained straight. Their dignity remained intact. Some Americans interpreted it as pride. Others interpreted it as courage. The debate quietly spread among officers. Major Richard Collins reviewed final arrangements. Captain Thomas Green approached him. "The men are talking." "About what?" "The delegation." Collins looked up. "What about them?" They expected something different. The major sighed. "They surrendered. That's what matters." Green nodded, but even he wasn't convinced. The war had produced countless scenes of brutality, countless scenes of desperation. Yet this felt different. This felt symbolic, as if the final chapter of the conflict was still being written. The Japanese representatives gathered near the signing table. Among them stood Foreign Minister Mamoru Shigemitsu and General Yoshijiro Yamizu. Their faces revealed almost nothing. American observers watched every movement, every glance, every breath. The room felt smaller. The silence grew heavier. Then came the moment. The documents were placed before them. The surrender instrument. The official end of war. Millions of lives had led to this table. Millions. The Japanese representatives stepped forward. Pens touched paper. Signatures appeared. History changed forever. Yet even during those moments, some Americans remained focused on something else. The posture. The composure. The refusal to visibly bow under humiliation. After the signing, discussions spread through command channels. Nothing dramatic. No confrontation. No incident. Just conversations. Questions. Opinions. And eventually, those conversations reached General MacArthur. MacArthur listened quietly. He sat behind a desk reviewing reports. Several officers explained what many men had observed. "They never lowered their heads, sir." Another officer added carefully. "Some of the troops felt they should have shown more submission." MacArthur remained silent. His expression never changed. The room waited. Nobody interrupted. Finally, he set the report down. His voice was calm. "Submission is not the purpose of surrender." The officers exchanged glances. MacArthur continued. "The purpose is peace." Nobody spoke. The room stayed silent. MacArthur leaned back slightly. "You cannot build peace by demanding humiliation." The officers listened carefully. His voice never rose. Yet every word carried weight. "The war is over." Another pause. "Now we must decide what kind of victors we will be." The room became completely still. Outside, activity continued across Tokyo Bay. Inside, nobody moved. MacArthur stood. He walked toward a window overlooking the harbor. For several moments, he simply looked outside. Then he spoke again. If those men had arrived crawling on their knees. He paused. Would that bring back our dead? No one answered. Because no one could. MacArthur turned. His face remained calm. The dead deserve victory. Another pause. Not vengeance. The words spread through command circles surprisingly fast. Officers repeated them. Soldiers discussed them. Many agreed. Some struggled. The wounds of war were still fresh. Very fresh. A few days later, an unexpected moment reinforced MacArthur's position. American occupation forces entered various areas of Japan. They expected resentment. They expected fear. Some expected hostility. Instead, many encountered exhausted civilians simply trying to survive. Children searched for food. Mothers stood in ration lines. Families lived among ruins. Private Samuel Walker remembered seeing a young Japanese girl standing beside a destroyed building. She couldn't have been older than 8. She held a small bundle wrapped in cloth. Nothing else. Walker stopped. The girl stared at him. Neither spoke. Eventually, she bowed slightly. A small gesture. Nothing dramatic. Walker later admitted he didn't know what to do. The war had taught him how to fight, not how to process moments like that. That evening, he told Sergeant Carter about the encounter. The sergeant listened quietly. Then he remembered MacArthur's words. The dead deserve victory, not vengeance. For a long moment, neither man spoke. Because suddenly the war seemed different. Not simpler, just different. Across Japan, occupation forces continued their mission. Many soldiers arrived expecting enemies. Instead, they found civilians. Teachers, doctors, farmers, children, people who had endured years of war. Just like countless families elsewhere. Reports began reaching headquarters. American troops were distributing food, providing medical assistance, helping restore order. Small acts, yet significant ones. MacArthur encouraged the approach. He understood something many leaders failed to understand. Victory was not merely the destruction of an enemy. Victory was what happened afterward. The true test came after the fighting ended. Months passed. The relationship between occupiers and civilians slowly evolved. Trust remained fragile. Pain remained everywhere. But violence did not define every interaction. Sometimes compassion did. One afternoon, Lieutenant Hayes encountered an elderly Japanese man standing outside a damaged school. A translator named Kenji Nakamura accompanied him. The old man asked a question. Nakamura translated. He wants to know why your soldiers are helping repair the building. Hayes looked at the broken structure. Then he answered, because children need schools. The translator relayed the message. The old man's eyes filled with tears. He bowed deeply. Hayes shifted uncomfortably. He wasn't a politician. He wasn't a philosopher. He was a soldier. Yet in that moment he realized something. The war had ended. And because it had ended, different choices became possible. The story of the surrender continued to circulate. People remembered the signatures, the photographs, the ceremony. But many who witnessed those events remembered something else. A lesson, a choice, a moment when victory could have become humiliation, but didn't. Years later, veterans still discussed that day. Corporal Donovan, who had once felt anger watching the Japanese officers walk aboard the Missouri, eventually reflected on the memory differently. Age had changed him. Experience had changed him. He remembered the tension. He remembered the emotions. But he also remembered what followed. MacArthur's refusal to confuse dignity with defiance. His refusal to demand humiliation simply because he possessed power. His understanding that lasting peace required restraint. Donovan later told a journalist something remarkable. The strongest thing we did that day wasn't winning the war. The journalist asked what he meant. Donovan looked down for several seconds. Then he answered, it was deciding what to do after we won. That answer stayed with many people. Because history often focuses on battles, on explosions, on victories, on defeats. But some of the most important moments happen after the guns fall silent. Moments when leaders decide whether power will be used wisely. Moments when soldiers decide whether hatred will continue. Moments when humanity gets one final chance. On that morning in Tokyo Bay, many expected to witness surrender. And they did. But they also witnessed something else. A test of character. Not for the defeated. For the victors. The Japanese officers arrived carrying the burden of a fallen empire. The Americans stood carrying the burden of terrible sacrifice. Both sides carried grief. Both sides carried scars. The easy path would have been humiliation. The easy path would have been revenge. History is full of such moments. But the harder path was dignity. The harder path was restraint. The harder path was choosing peace when anger still felt justified. That choice did not erase suffering. It did not erase loss. It did not erase the horrors of war. Nothing could, but it helped create something rare. A future. Because true victory is not measured by how completely an enemy is crushed. It is measured by what remains when the fighting ends. And on the deck of the USS Missouri, surrounded by battleships, soldiers, sailors, cameras, and history itself, one lesson quietly emerged from the ruins of war. Strength without mercy becomes fear. Victory without wisdom becomes arrogance. But strength guided by wisdom can change the course of generations. The men who witnessed that day never forgot it. Not because of what was destroyed, but because of what was preserved. Human dignity. Even at the end of a devastating war. What would you have done? Let us know in the comments below. And if you want more World War II stories where humanity, war, and difficult decisions collided, make sure to subscribe.